Family in Gilroy, California had witnessed a large craft in the sky over a suburban neighborhood. There were numerous sightings of this craft in the days prior to August 13, 1975. Over 20 witnesses reported seeing this craft. And 4 months earlier, a teacher, a science teacher, and 3 other people had witnessed this craft through binoculars before it suddenly vanished. Welcome to Stories of Intrigue with Happy Jack. I'm Jack. Like and subscribe if you like stories of intrigue, mystery, and sometimes terror. The events of this story started on August 10th, 1975. Mrs. Smith was driving home Imelda, a 12-year-old Imelda, home, and as they were driving along, they noticed a really bright light in the sky. And suddenly, as they noticed, they'd start descending down, diving rapidly towards them. And soon it was tailing them. They were terrified. So Mrs. Smith just gunned it to Imelda's house, and they were driving as quickly as possible with this thing in hot pursuit. They literally pulled into the driveway, screeching to a halt, leaving the truck running and the doors open. And they flew into the house screaming at the top of their lungs. They were both shaking in terror. Imelda's mother, Frances, had been up at this point, lying in bed, but up, and she heard the screams and she ran out to see what was wrong. She thought they were being chased by goons or something. And much to her surprise, when she ran out, she saw the craft. Imelda later on recounted that the reason she was so terrified was because they thought they were all going to be abducted by aliens. Mrs. Smith later reported to the police that she saw 4 antenna-like protrusions on top with lights on them, and then 4 landing gear, and the craft was spherical or oval-shaped. Frances, Imelda's mother, reported that it was huge, and by the time she got out, it was over the street and had retreated up into the sky a little ways and across the street. And she noticed that, she noticed the protrusions in the lights as well. Imelda's father had come out and witnessed the craft as it was leaving. He got out a little bit later, and he saw it as it was leaving and accelerating at rapid speed towards San Jose. He did notice that there was a triangular-shaped panel of lights on top. And Officer Jones of the Gilroy Police Department, who took the report, in his own statement said that the family seemed to be of good moral character and didn't appear to be drinking. So his conclusion was that they probably did see something. After the report became public, the family was deluged with attention from the press, from UFO enthusiasts, and general weirdos. And even a Urantia cult showed up and had a prayer session on their lawn. There was a man who showed up at one point, a seedy-looking guy who emitted a stench. He took the children out into the night and to see if the craft would return. Needless to say, all this attention caused the family significant stress. On September 15th, 1975, Frances decided to visit a friend in Industrial City, California, and perhaps to take a break from all the stress of the event. One night, while she was visiting this friend, she fell asleep watching television, and she not only to awake to have, to be confronted with 2 large beings in silver suits standing next to her, and the suits, like the beings, were covered head to toe in silver latex-like material. They had slits for mouth, nose, and eyes. Normally, this would be terrifying, but for some reason, when she awoke, she felt completely calm. And they asked her to come with her, and that they wanted information. And they were speaking with her telepathically. She asked, "Well, what about my friend?" And they said, "Don't worry about your friend." And then they lifted her up, and they floated on out of the house, and then up into the sky. And she remembers seeing the rooftop, and the spaceship in the sky, the UFO, and then the stars in the sky above. And like it was some kind of really weird Peter Pan extraterrestrial thing. And they floated her straight into the craft, and they said inside the craft they went up 3 levels and into a room. This room was circular, had an emerald green floor, and was illuminated by this soft white light. And she remembers that she saw the walls were covered in a soft silver and large round instrument panels. The whole area was illuminated with a soft white light, and it seemed intensely beautiful to her. Suddenly, she was blinded by a white light and remembers nothing else. Next thing she knows, she's awake in her bed. She gets up and tells her friend what happened. Her friend said, well, that's strange. The front door was left open and unlocked. And another strange thing was that she had slept through the entire night deeply when she was normally an insomniac. For the next 3 years, nothing really happened. Things started to calm down and life started to return to normal, thankfully, for Frances, Imelda, and her family. Nearly 3 years later, no new sightings. Things were winding down. Life was returning to normal. Frances, being a nurse, was taking care of an elderly woman in her home when suddenly she was pushed violently to the floor by an invisible entity. The elderly woman witnessed the attack and said she saw Frances spinning around on the floor, violently ramming into furniture and things and obstacles. The attack was so violent that she broke a leg and punctured a vein with a wood splinter, and as well as suffering multiple bruises. Frances then had to spend 6 days recovering in hospital. Poltergeist activity is often characteristic of UFO encounters, but in this case, because of the 3-year gap, it is difficult to know if they're linked. This case was researched by Jacques Vallée, a scientist and Silicon Valley venture capitalist. He spent years researching UFO phenomenon and is a pioneer in the area. He often links the poltergeist activity that can happen in a UFO encounter with tales of demonic attacks from olden times, Middle Ages, and so on. Is there a link? It's hard to say, but he's asking questions that few people are that deserve answers. The main source material for this book has been drawn from Vallée's book, Confrontations, a scientist's search for alien contact. If you're interested in knowing more about the negative and sometimes terrifying effects of UFO encounters, I would recommend this book. There's a link in the description below. If you're interested in stories of intrigue, subscribe and like. There's also a link to my Patreon. See you next time. And if you see an alien in your room ready to abduct you, pie them in the face with a banana cream pie. They hate the taste of banana.